Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is the 10th May 2016. The first article is related to the West Asia. So before going into this article, let us know a brief account of the recent events that have happened. So in this case, Iran representing the Shia fraction in Saudi Arabia and Shia faction in West Asia, and Saudi Arabia is representing the Sunni faction. So in this case, the ongoing fight in Yemen and in Syria, if you take, there is a proxy war which is set between these two countries. After the Iran nuclear deal, economically Iran is getting mainstreamed and Saudi Arabia's influence to that extent is decreasing. So with regard to the Gulf Cooperation Council, or with regard to the US and Saudi Arabia's recent relations are considered, so the Saudi's influence is decreasing and it is clearly visible. And economically, if you observe, the fall in oil prices is worst affecting the Saudi economy. So in this case, if you take the Yemen, there are Houthi rebels who are Shias. These Houthi rebels are getting the support from Iran. And the next is the ruling faction is getting the support from the Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia also took the airstrikes against the rebels in capital Sana'a. And coming to Syria, the President Assad is supported by the Iran and the rebels are supported by the Saudi Arabia over here. So in these circumstances, in this geopolitical vulnerability, the Saudi Arabia wanted to become itself a strong economy, independent from the existing oil economy. So the fall in oil prices is one reason, and also to gain its supremacy in the West Asian region is the other reason. So in this case, the Crown Prince, Mr. Mohammed, he has given a plan, or else ambitious plan, to make the Saudi Arabia independent of the oil exports. So in this case, what he said is, within next 4 years, it will become an oil-free or else oil-independent economy. The largest public sector company, or else I will say, Aramco, it is getting disinvested, and the proceeds of that will be kept in the Saudi Arabian Sovereign Wealth Fund. And with that wealth fund, the investments will be made in the research, and this will be used for modernizing the defense industry in the Saudi Arabia. So it's a 4 years plan. But however, many of the strategic experts, they question the viability of this plan, and they believe that it is very over ambitious. So in this context, though there is a fall in oil prices, the Saudi Arabia is not interested in decreasing the production to increase the demand. The reason is this. So Saudi Arabia fears that the market share which it holds will be lost to its opponents. And second thing is, the Iran and Russia are getting worst affected because of the fall in oil prices compared to Saudi Arabia. Even American companies, that is especially who are in shale gas production, they are also facing the heat of the fall in prices. It means in the very few more years, Saudi thinks that the situation will be reversed. So in this context, what are the dangers for the Saudi now? Now the unemployment rate is increasing in Saudi Arabia. It is more than 29%, which is the highest. And second is, the Yemen and Tunisia, Egypt, all these countries went through the Arab Spring. But however, Saudi monarchy was able to escape from that by offering the liberal benefits to the people to the tune of $70 billion plus. So now, the Saudi Arabia do not have any such leverage. In this context, any internal rebellion starts in Saudi Arabia. To what extent Al Saud family has a control over the nation is a big question. The worsening of United States and Saudi relations is also another indication in this story. And recently in the United States of America, there are demands that the Saudi has to be sued with regard to 9/11 attacks. So because many of these also have indirectly got this support from the Saudi agencies, the terror elements. So these are the various volatile situations in the West Asia now. Now coming to the Nepal crisis, already I have discussed this in the yesterday's newspaper. So what we said is, in Nepal there are 4 major parties. The largest party is the Nepali Congress. Communist Party of Nepal, United Marxist-Leninist, Communist Party of Nepal, Maoist, United Madheshi Democratic Front. So these are the four parties. Now the government is formed by these three and the Nepali Congress is out of it. So recently the Communist Party of Nepal, Maoist Mr. Prajanda, he came into an agreement with the Nepali Congress to come out of the existing government and to become the Prime Minister by himself with the support of the Nepali Congress. But in the last minute he stepped back and it gave the life to the KP Sharma Oli government. So in this context, the Nepali ambassador to India was recalled and also the president of Nepal, Ms. Vaidya Devi, visit to India was cancelled. So in these circumstances, whenever there is a crisis in Nepal, so the Nepali politics are showing the fingers to India and citing India as a reason to raise the nationalistic sentiments over there. This anti-Indianness which is growing in the Nepali elite is a cause of concern for India. Now coming to the all up in smoke. You know that recently the Supreme Court has agreed for bringing in the pictorial warnings to the size of 85% of the cigarette packet size. Along with this, across the world, there are many other developments have occurred which have got a considerable impact on controlling the smoking and health conditions associated with it. So in this context, if you observe, in case of Australia, there are no more the brand or logo of a company manufacturing the cigarettes cannot be printed on the pack. And the European Union and United States of America, they banned the e-cigarettes because even a person, if he starts with e-cigarettes over a period of time, he is moving back to the formal smoking. And the third thing is, in India, we have banned the smoking in the public areas. Recently, European Court of Justice also clearly said that the light, mild, etc., this categorization shall not appear on the cigarettes. And it also has raised the pictorial warning size on the cigarette packets. So it means that across the world there is a movement towards control of the tobacco. But however, few of the countries such as Cuba, etc., they are going to worst affected because of the control of the tobacco, where their national economies are dependent on this. So many of the countries, they want to take the issue to the WTO as it is going to worst affect the trade, international trade in the tobacco and related products. Now coming to the a license to kill innovation. So now recently the Ministry of Home Affairs has put forward the Geospatial Information Regulation Bill. According to that, any depiction, dissemination, publishing of a geospatial information of India need the governmental permission, and an authority will be established, and that authority has to approve, then only the information can be used for public utility. Even the consumers who are using the information also shall get the permission from the authority. That is the first thing. And the second point is, anyone who depicts the wrong geospatial information, especially the borders, they are punishable to the tune of the 7 years or to the tune of maximum of 100 crores of rupees. So in this context, if you observe in today data world or complex data ecosystem, there is a huge interdependency between multiple applications which use the maps. For example, if you are using WhatsApp, WhatsApp uses the Google Maps. If you are using the Ola cab, Ola uses the Google Maps. So different systems are involved closely with regard to use of the geospatial information. How it has to be regulated is a major question. Added to that, it will lead to unnecessary red tape because the billions and billions of data and requests will be coming to the authority will so established. So how it can scrutinize the billions of data, every street, every house, it's very difficult. So in this context, what the author suggests is the government can establish a registration entity rather than an entity that has to give the authorization or permission for the geospatial information. If not, the red tapeism so going to be developed is going to kill the innovation in India. Now coming to the Shiv Vishwanathan article, now he talks about Hobbes' Leviathan. He believed that every individual is guided by the self-interest. Now, he exchanges his sovereignty to the state in return for the safety the state provides to him, the ruler provides to him. So that is what is the basis for the social contract according to Hobbes. So if it is the case in India, every police station, the state itself is a symbol of tyranny. So if you observe, especially in the tribal areas, no institutions of the governance are functioning. But if you take onto the middle class urban areas, almost every institution appears to be focused towards their functionality. So the recent violence in Chhattisgarh against these tribal people, it itself depicts the worsening of the situation, and it's an early warning for India how the society is moving. So in this case, he gives a comparison. Ishman, this is the person, Adolf Ishman is the person who was involved with the violence against the Jews during the Second World War. This Ishman, who was the chief of the secret police, he was a normal individual when he was prosecuted in Israel. So this it shows that the person was more influenced by the society and the circumstances, influence of the state's propaganda to go to such an extent. In this context, we always shall be cautious how the state is functioning and how the state is using its power and causing the violence against the innocent. So that's what he tries to depict over here. Now coming to the terrorism, Mr. Hussein Haqqani, the former ambassador of the Pakistan to United States of America, he has said that the former IAS chief, Mr. Pasha, has declared the 26/11 perpetrators are the bad elements of the ISI and the military of the Pakistan. So in this context, it is the first official confession from the Pakistani establishment that these people have the formal ISI connections. And the second thing is, if we carefully observe, whenever India-Pakistan relations are getting formalized, there is an intervention of the Pak army and the existing ruler is deposed of. Or there is a terror attack on India. From 1956 onwards, this is what is the story which we can see. In 1958, the Prime Minister Noon was disposed, and later Ayub Khan after the Tashkent Agreement. And Nawaz Sharif after the Lahore Agreement, Musharraf himself in 2007. So all this clearly shows that the Pakistani establishment, especially the military, it consists of the deeper control of the Pakistani policy against India. Now, coming to the Indian Express, the governance with regard to the banking sector. So the RBI is going to keep the permissions open for the new banks. But however, this article analyzes that the stringent conditions which are placed, they are going to discourage the people to come to the banks or open the new banks. So in this context, if a bank has to be opened, a minimum capital of 500 crore, and added to that, the 40% of the company's operations shall not be in non-financial sectors. Understand? Again, the minimum of 40% it can constitute the non-financial operations of a company. If they are more than 40%, then they cannot establish a bank. And it means the Tatas, Ambanis, everyone are excluded from this because majorly their focus consists of the other activities. And all these major corporations, 10%, they can take the 10% of investment in a bank, but they can never be the promoters of bank. With this one single provision, all the big industrial houses are excluded from establishing the banks in India. And the second thing is, the existing banking environment is filled with heavy competition. So already 11 payment banks and 10 other banks, these are being allowed by the RBI. So, and again, two banks, that is Bandhan Bank and IDFC, these are in place. It means that the competition is very intense in the banking sector. And the third thing, if we observe, the existing bank position is not very comfortable, especially the non-performance assets of the banks are huge, and the operational costs have also increased tremendously. And the next is, again, if the conditions which are prescribed for the operations, at least the capital adequacy ratio has to be 13% for the next 3 years, and also the company has to be listed within the next 6 years. So all these conditions make the operations and also the entry into the banking sector very stringent to motivate the industrial complexes to enter into the banking financial sector. And coming to the MCI, there are, with regard to medical and healthcare sector, one is medical entrance examination. Supreme Court has clearly said a common entrance exam has to exist, and NEET is made compulsory for all. And the second thing is a three-member committee is appointed to look into the fulfilling of statutory conditionalities for running the MCI. So here, MCI restructuring was on agenda when Mr. Patel was caught with huge corruption charges. And then the bill was proposed by the Manmohan Singh government, that is National Commission for Human Resources for Health. So NCHCH bill. So later, a committee, Ranjit Rai Chaudhary committee, also gave valuable recommendations on this matter, and the bill is pending before the Rajya Sabha now. So in this context, the Ranjit Rai Chaudhary committee, it made a valuable recommendation that every person who is qualified to be a doctor, for him an exit exam has to be conducted. Only if he clears this exit exam, then he shall be made eligible to practice the medicine in the country. In that way, unskilled manpower can be eliminated from the doctor fraternity. So that need to be implemented. Coming to the message from Mahakumbh. So with regard to Mahakumbh and Ujjain, the president of Nepal and Sri Lanka, they are invited. So let us see how is it related to the foreign policy. From early days, Nehruvian era, India's foreign policy is always kept itself away from the religion. So though the Prime Minister Nehru was instrumental in establishing Indian Council for Cultural Relations, so it was never took the religious factor into consideration in engaging the diplomacy. But however, if you see the present Prime Minister, it appears that he wanted to change the situation, and the deep Indian roots of culture, civilization, religion can be a better element for the rising of the India's soft diplomacy. So in this context, the making of June 21st as International Yoga Day, and the Prime Minister visiting the Pashupatinath temple, and he also visiting the Buddhist temple in Kyoto, all these are the symbols for this change. And added to that, with regard to the recent event, Prime Minister has invited the Nepali President, Mr. Baidya Devi, and also the Sri Sena from the Sri Lanka. So along with that, with regard to the Islam, the cultural relations are also being held in New Delhi, or else Islamic conference was held in New Delhi. All these shows that the present government is interested to explore its relations with the neighboring countries based on the deep-rooted religious relations too. So the Prime Minister Modi is clearly interested in leveraging the Buddhist relations between the India and East Asian and Southeast Asian countries. So this is clearly visible. Now coming to the editorial page, degrees of exclusion. Now you all know that Rajasthan and Haryana governments have brought in educational qualifications to contest the elections. So here, how far it is necessary, let us understand. Already we have discussed enough articles on this. So what are the provisions of the Haryana bill, etc. But if you clearly observe, these provisions are excluding especially the Dalits from the electoral competition. And the second is, the Supreme Court upheld on the basis of two criteria. They believed that education brings in the sense of right and wrong, or education raises the intelligence of a man. But these two are refuted by the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. According to him, education can bring in new morals, but however, its connection to directly to the intelligence cannot be attributed. So that's why universal adult franchise and also competition to the elections without any discrimination among the educated and uneducated is provided into. So in this context, the present Panchayat laws, they are going to the very spirit propounded by the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. That is what is the essence of this article. And next is life over the death. It is related to the recent National Law University's death penalty research. So according to this death penalty India report, most of the people facing the death penalty are Dalits, and significant of them are minorities. So, backward classes and economically disadvantaged. Most of them are the first-time offenders. And added to that, the 5% of the cases in which the trial courts imposes the death penalty are being upheld by the Supreme Court. It means there is a lot of error and casualness at the level of the trial courts to declare a punishment death penalty. So the rarest of the rare principle propounded by the Supreme Court has not been followed. Death penalty is something which cannot be corrected by the Supreme Court at a later date. So in this context, rethinking on the existence of the death penalty is necessary for India. Now coming to the insolvency and bankruptcy code, let's try to understand this. Now, any individual or a company who is a debtor or any bank or a financial institution who is a creditor, they can start the insolvency proceedings. So then they will go to the adjudicator. Who is the adjudicator? There is a National Company Law Tribunal, Debt Recovery Tribunal. Debt Recovery Tribunal for the partnership firms and individual proprietor firms. National Company Law Tribunal for the private sector companies and also the limited liability companies. You can go and file it over there. Then it will give the permission. Then a creditor, he will appoint an insolvency professional. He will take the control of the debtor and his assets, and an agreement will be reached. If 75% of at least of the creditors agree for the balance or else agree for the revival of the company, it goes for restructuring. If not, it goes for liquidation, and after that whatever the proceeds come, they will be utilized. If you compare this, India has a huge assets which are locked because of lack of proper exit. So there is proper lack of closure of a company, and the time required for India is much larger, very much higher. And though we have the SARFAESI Act, debt recovery tribunals, huge backlog of cases are making it a challenge. Now the major remarkable difference this bill is going to bring in is the proceeds, this particular insolvency professional mediated proceeds, they have to be finished within 180 days. Under exceptional circumstances, when 75% of the creditors agree, it can proceed for another 90 days. So the time frame has been clearly stated over here. Now the misuse of the Article 356 from Namboodiripad, it is first time when full-fledged formal misuse has occurred. When Kerala government, it has brought in Kerala Education Bill, the Nair Society and Christian and Muslim associations, everyone, constituted something called Vimochana movement. So after this, the liberation struggle or Vimochana Samaram. So in this case, when the law and order situation gone out of control, then Congress government has dismissed the communist-led Namboodiripad government. From today, Uttarakhand onwards, Article 356, which is expected to be a dead letter, was misused in most of the circumstances. So these are the articles for today. So thank you very much. Already we crossed the 20 minutes in the video, so I'm unable to discuss the other things. Thank you very much. All the best.